Well, welcome to Herzegovina Strip Festival. I am delighted to be joined by Jill Thompson
Hi, Andrew. It's
today.
great to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. And this year's inductee into the Eisner Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And how does that feel?
Feels like I need a bigger chair. I need some kind of a throne.
Yeah, with melted swords, I think.
I'm a big deal now.
Especially with these storyboards behind you.
I know. It's really awesome.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, when you first started out in comics, did you have any idea that you would get to this point?
Well, it was kind of a goal.
It was.
When I first started drawing comics, I loved comics. I wanted to make comics. I wanted to make Archie comics. Then I wanted to make superhero comics. And I understood that someone did the writing and someone did the drawing. Mm-hmm. So my first big goal was like, I wanted to be a penciler, right? Mm-hmm. That's the artist part. Sure. And then I became frustrated with not having my art look always the way that it did when I penciled it, when it showed up in the comic, because someone was inking me and maybe had a different style. Yeah. And I also had no control over who would be inking me. Yeah. So then I started to ink some of my own work, and then I would get better and better at that. And then I worked my way up until suddenly I was doing all the jobs. So, and which was technically my goal. I wanted to be, for lack of an appropriate, like a comic book term, like I wanted to be Charles Schulz. Right. So it's like I wanted to have my characters and my world, and I would be the person that did it. So I guess you would say once I, started doing all the stuff in comics, like I wanted to be that person, the comic book creator, not one of the people doing a comic. Mm-hmm. I don't mind collaborating with people. I do quite enjoy drawing with someone else writing, but I wanted to be like me, my stuff, my art, my creations.
Wow, and you've really achieved it.
Yes.
You've got there. Congratulations. I mean, yeah, it's been an incredible career, and one of the things I was thinking about recently is just the variety that you bring to your work in terms of styles as well as media, which we'll come to later, and this seems to be a real difficulty for a lot of young creators, is trying to isolate their one style, and you can do many but still be recognizable as Jill Thompson.
Oh good, I'm glad I'm still recognizable. I didn't plan to do that when I started drawing comics, but I think it's because I went to the now defunct, sadly, American Academy of Art in Chicago, which was an illustration and art trade school that was based on the kind of drawing principles, illustration principles of Andrew Loomis. Okay. And well, he went there, but so that school taught you, drawing, painting, but advertising, illustration, photography. So it was meant to get you a working illustrator job. Right. And your end goal there really is yes, there are people who graduated from my school who had their style, like Alex Ross. It's he's definitely got the type of thing that he does. But I know my illustration teacher stressed the fact that there's going to be a lot of people out there looking for a job, and not everyone's going to have a style. So you want to make sure that when a job is offered to you, you can do it. So he wanted you to be versatile in the types of things that you could do or mediums you could work in. So we had to do so many different types of mediums in our illustration class. It was like watercolor and acrylic and pen and ink and stippling, because technically it's like you were going to get the job was you had to illustrate the coupons for the newspaper, or an illustrated story for a woman's magazine, or something about sports, or you might be a courtroom artist. And so technically your job was to kind of bust in front of somebody in the line and they'd be like, hey, can somebody do black and white wash? Yes, I can do it. Yeah. So it wasn't until I did the Death at Death's Door manga, when Karen Berger called me to ask me to do a manga style thing. I just said, sure, I can do it. And then hung up and was like, oh, wow, I hope I can do that. And I hope I can do it for 192 pages. Wow, yeah. But I realized even when I was like my work on Wonder Woman and my work on Sandman, my work on Scary Godmother, it wasn't that I sat down and planned for it to look like any of those things. I just started drawing, and that's what came out for each story.
Oh, okay.
So it was very organic, and
Sure.
I don't know, it just kind of flowed out that way.
Yeah, but that's one of the real benefits of this kind of trade school mentality, isn't it? To treat art, obviously with respect and with admiration, but also to see it as a trade and to develop all these tools.
Well, I didn't want to do. I mean, being a working artist, a freelance working artist, self-employed freelance working artist is hard enough.
Yeah.
And like they said, it's gonna be feast or famine for you. So you learn to never say no. So you're either always too overscheduled because you don't want there to be a point where you don't have any work at all.
Of course.
So, I mean, I took all of that to heart. I was always a really good student. I liked homework. Even in grade school, I liked reports, anything that I could create a diorama for or draw pictures for all of my book reports or historical reports. So, I guess I like good feedback. So I suppose when I've collaborated with people, I've wanted them to be very pleased with what I do.
Yeah.
So none of that is ever a job for me. It's too personal. But I've taken things that I was like, well, it's not my ideal thing, but I don't want to not be employed.
That's the thing with the jobbing artist, isn't it? It's this constant question of, shall I say yes to this so I've got a job for the foreseeable future,
Like,
or
can
do I
do two
wait
things
out?
at the same time?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes.
Do you ever find yourself doing that, like balancing several plates?
Unfortunately, yeah. As I have taken on more jobs of the storytelling in comics, where some people are like, oh yeah, I'm penciling this page, and it's like, well, I'm writing this story, penciling this page, lettering this, and painting it. Oh, geez. And someone's like, oh, you should try and make it easier. Bill Sienkiewicz told me once, he was like, oh, you know what I do? He's like, I don't like to do things really small anymore, so I'll just do all of them on a big illustration board and then piece them together in Photoshop afterward. I go, like, now you're making even more work for yourself as far as I was concerned. Yeah. It's like, so you have one page, and I'm worried, let me finish this page today. It has 15 panels on it, and you just made 15 pages, and then you have to scan them and put them together and turn them into a page. No, that's too much.
Yeah, that does sound like an extra job on top of something that's already overwhelming. Yeah, and so what's your kind of process then? Do you like to kind of say spend a day on one project and then maybe move on, or?
If I'm stupid enough to take two jobs at the same time, or slow on one job so the other one starts, so I have to start that one at the same time, I will break my day up. It's where it'll be a matter of, okay, I'll be up at this time, and from 7 till 12 I'll work on this story, then I'll do my lunch, then either if I'll finish that page, then have some of the rest of the day, and then after dinner, then I'll work on the other thing. But I don't want to do that anymore. I'm old. I can't juggle all of that. So.
Oh yeah. So you nowadays you like to just focus on one.
I do, and I want to focus on something that I've made.
Sure.
She says, knowing that she has a job that she's collaborating with somebody on, literally in the hotel room right now.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right now, I'm really focusing on Scary Godmother stuff. So I am the person that runs my own web store.
Right.
So when I get not only do I put things on my website, sometimes make the things that go on my website, then I have to get orders, pack them up, ship them up. So I have one day that I do shipping, and then I'm always trying to get other pieces of merchandise made that I would like to own. So I never make anything that I personally wouldn't want.
Sure.
And then try and navigate any other thing that's necessary. A lot of social media content, which is a blessing and a burden at the same time, because I don't do well with, like, I need reading glasses, right? So I've got my reading glasses. So sometimes, and I'm nearsighted as well, so I have contact lenses in.
Right.
So some people can have their setup with their camera or their phone hanging over their work, and they'll draw and everything will get finished. But when I get down to like needing the details, I have to make sure that point of the brush gets to the end. And with my contacts and my reading glasses, it's not always sure. So what I really have to do is at the very end of the process, and this is even on my pages, take my contact lenses out and then get this close to the paper and draw. And I was like, I can't finish the tutorial because my head will be in the way of the camera.
Yeah.
So I will do a certain point, like as much as possible that looks good. But it takes time to film yourself, edit it,
Yeah.
put it up online. I also make little stop motion animations with my Scary Godmother dolls, and that I usually start at 10 o'clock in the evening and I'll work until like 5, 6 in the morning on those.
Wow.
When I make them.
But they're painstaking as well.
They are, because now I'm making huge like universes that are all in my basement in tubs that every time I need to use something, I have to bring it out and then put all of the pieces of her world together and then, maneuver around. And I mean, the actual filming of it isn't that bad because I have a tripod and it's with my phone, but there's oh God, what is it called? Lumen or something? There's an app. Can't remember. There's an app that just does stop motion.
Right.
And it has every tool you need in there. And it's very easy for me to remember and use something with that. So it's like, that'll be the last thing I do. I'll do all my filming and my sets, and then I'll wake up and I'll put it online once I've edited it, and then go to sleep for a couple of hours and then wake up and go, oh God, I have to clean all this stuff off my house to be able to do it, to go back to work. So I have a lot of things that I like to do.
I mean, this is a huge exercise in time management.
I'm not good at time management.
Yeah.
I'm good at wanting to do a lot of things, but probably to the detriment of, one thing suffers when I have a massive, this is the ADHD gone wrong. I used to benefit from my ADHD a lot better because I could juggle a lot of things and seamlessly keep them going. Now I'm doing it and a lot of them hit me in the head. It's like I can't do it all successfully at the same time.
But this is the incredible thing about Scary Godmother as well, is that you've got obviously this character and how she began, and you've created a multimedia universe essentially around this one character. So even though you're focusing on one project, like say, you've spiderwebbed out into multiple.
I would love to spiderweb out more. I would love to get some back on television.
Really?
And my ideal thing that I want, and I might have to figure out how to do it myself, is I would like to do, like a weekly television series, but everyone except the little girl character of Hannah would be Muppets.
Oh, that'd be
and like
wonderful.
very elaborate Jim Henson, Dark Crystal-y style. So you'd have some that look like, yes, it's Kermit style stuff, but then very willowy, creepy characters that would need a lot of maybe green screening out some of the puppeteers, and then a human character, but also some animation. It's like in my brain, I have this idea for a show that would have, I guess it would be like a super creepier Pee-wee's Playhouse, where you have like an animated series, or you might have a treat that you learned how to make, and practical sets.
Yeah.
I would hire everybody. This is why I need to win the lottery. I would hire every animator that doesn't have a job right now, and do cool little 2D animations, and also have your regular like spooky Sesame Street style neighborhood.
I mean, this sounds absolutely fantastic. Just from a personal point of view, that's right up my alley. And the thing is, for a long time, these Jim Henson style puppets was it was just lost, and nothing was really happening with them. But there's been a bit of a resurgence with recent films of like obviously the Dark Crystal and things. So why not? And there's such a massive skill set out there that can be employed for magnificent storytelling.
I want to have in Chicago, but other place would be fine. I wanted to have a cafe, like more of a coffee shop, but also a witchy shop that would be based on the inside of Scary Godmother's house. Right. So people who love the Scary Godmother TV show would have a place where they could one, have parties, two, craft, also buy witchy stuff, and just have an appropriately like little scary godmother's house. Again, I'm not rich enough to do all the things that I need to do, but investors, come at me.
There you go. That's why the cameras are here.
Or
really.
even better, if you're an investor that's looking to lose money for your taxes, I'll happily make a great show with your money, and you can still say, well, it didn't do as well as we wanted to.
Exactly.
And then I would still have my show, and you would still have your tax write-off.
Exactly. And everybody can call it a passion project.
That's right.
And that's how we accept these things.
Oh, no, it would work for me. I wouldn't be the investor.
Sure,
But I
exactly.
would be the owner.
No, that sounds wonderful as well. When you do these different kind of multimedia aspects of, for instance, Scary Godmother, do you try and kind of juggle a couple of things at a time? For instance, you're working on as you said the kind of the stop motion things, and then it kind of gives you an idea for, say, a comic or like an animation, and it sounds like a really fertile bed for creativity.
I have, I used to train in improv at the Second City Training Center and the Players Workshop in Chicago. So all of my ideas are very improvisationally based. And when I was first starting to write for myself, after I'd been collaborating with other people on comics, and decided to write my own, I didn't know how to write, right? Like the idea of sitting down at a piece of paper and just start typing up an idea, it didn't go anywhere for me. But I would have ideas, and what I would do is I would sketch them out. So like the very first idea for Scary Godmother came simply because of the fact that my first niece was going to be born. And when the baby was born, I was like, "Oh, I want to be her godmother," because I thought, incorrectly, I thought that the godmother in the Catholic Church meant it was like a guardian. Like if something happened to the parents, you would get the child without the painful process of giving birth. So I was like, "Oh, I want to be godmother," but I didn't know that you're just responsible for the religious upbringing of that child. That's what that role is, and. But I was thinking about myself at the time. My hair was big and red, and I was a lot more goth. I mean, I look a little goth right now, like kind of like summer goth. But at the time, I was a lot more goth, and I always wore a black motorcycle jacket, which I still have. I just don't wear it in the summer. And I thought, oh, I'd be a pretty scary godmother. Hey, wait a minute. And like literally, it was one of those light bulb over the head moments. And I saw a little picture in my head of this like kind of little witch fairy, and I immediately sketched her out. And then once I had her sketched out, I started having questions about like, well, where does she live? What does she do? Who are her friends? Why is she there? And it just kind of really happened naturally. So once I made that and made the first book for my niece, who is named Hannah and was born, then I wanted to make more. And I found, based on having been in an improv troupe and done that, the best way for me to come up with stories was to take a bunch of, like all my characters' names in one hat, a bunch of verbs in another hat, and a bunch of random nouns in another hat. And I would pick one out of each one. So it was like taking suggestions from the audience. Yeah. And it takes all the pressure off of coming up with like that perfect idea. It was throwing characters and you know the personalities of, and you know how they would react in certain situations, in a situation or a setting or whatever that tiny simple sentence was. And once I did that, it would make all sorts of other ideas come.
That's brilliant, yeah. And didn't William S. Burroughs do something like that with like a kind of a cutout structure? I
don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And because you get these really sometimes odd like smashings together of atoms, and then whatever comes out of that could be really inventive, really interesting, and a lot of fun to pursue if you prefer to do spontaneous kind of creativity.
The funny thing is, when I was a little girl, I used to be afraid of everything. I also used to be incredibly shy. Once I went to art school and found out that there were a bunch of other people just like me, I was able to come out of my shell. Then I went to improv school because I liked comedy. I also wanted to be an actor at the same time. That's where I learned, like, I'd much rather be put in front of an audience with 1,000 people with no script, no idea of what was going on, and wing it, than if you said, here's your list of things you have to talk about, and here's a presentation. That kind of stuff will make me sweat as if I'm standing outside right now, where water will be running down the back of me, filling up my shoes, and I'll be like, oh, everyone's bored. Oh my God. I used to do a ton of talks at schools. And that was the most terrifying. I would sweat like crazy for that. And that's when I learned to abandon the list, just start showing art, talking about what you do, and then take questions. Because that way you'll know what people are interested in. And then obviously I can go off on a tangent and talk for quite a long time about something and maybe make my way around a ton of points. But yeah, I'm much more comfortable just winging it anywhere than I am having, I guess, do the homework for it.
Sure. How do you bring that kind of spontaneity and winging it, as you put it, into a project where you have to collaborate with someone else? How does that usually come about with you?
Well, they're the audience.
Okay.
If the writer, because they came up with the idea, first of all, I want them to be pleased and surprised with what I do. After that, I want the audience to have a reaction for it. Some way. I mean, it's my job to make someone entertained and or sad, someone entertained and happy or laughing, someone entertained and questioning something, or deeply thinking or being involved. I want them to get an emotional reaction out of whatever it is that I do. Especially, like there was a situation when I was collaborating with Evan Dorkin on Beasts of Burden. If you don't know what Beasts of Burden is, it's a story about these dogs and a cat who are the supernatural protectors of their neighborhood. And there's very few people in it. You don't really see humans in the story at all. But one of the stories, it started out as a series of short stories in anthologies that Dark Horse put out. And the first one was the Dark Horse Book of Hauntings. That was a story about a haunted doghouse. And then the second one, they said like, hey, let's do a lot more of these books. And there was the Dark Horse Book of Witchcraft. And then so our story, I guess, got a lot of good reaction. And by good reaction, it made people cry. So they had a lot of, I guess, letters. People actually were writing or emailing about that story. So they asked Evan to write another one, and he created this entire universe with these dogs in it. So we went on and did these 4, and the third book was called the Dark Horse Book of Monsters, or the fourth one was the Dark Horse Book of Monsters. It was the longest story that we'd had so far. In fact, the editor at the time had gone through and like made sure that they took away some ad pages to give extra pages. Wow. And while there was a point in the story, because we didn't have 2 extra pages at that point, where a very emotional thing was happening. And Evan had written, it was this very sad thing. And as I'm reading it, it's really touching me. And I was like, this just can't be the middle of one page, like a panel in this page. I go, this is a 2-page thing. So I called them both up and I said, can I have 2 more pages? And I said, Evan, do you trust me? Can I open this up? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, I'll tell you what I was going to do. And he goes, well, yeah, I had to finish it because we only had, blah, blah. I forget how many, 14 pages. Sure. So I made this one scene happen. And while I was doing it, it made me cry. And at the time when I was working on it and drawing it, I was sobbing. And my ex-husband came in. He goes, what's the matter? What happened? Are you okay? And I was like, the dog and the boy, and he was like, oh my God, are you talking about that story? And I was like, yes. He goes, God, I thought you got a phone call and someone died. And I was like, no, it's just, he was like, okay, geez. And he goes in the other room. But then when I was painting it, again, I get to that point and I'm crying so hard. I've got that like horrible, ugly crying where you're like sniffing and like my eyes were, like I dropped, I cried tear on the page, and on that certain page, there's like this perfect salt flower. That's my emotion on there, and everyone who read those books when they would come up to my table, if they'd never seen anything before, I would say, read this book. And if it doesn't affect you somehow, bring it back and I'll pay you back for it. And everyone would come back to my table. They would go, God damn it, I was crying. And they would just say, I need all of them, and then buy all of the books. So
that's a wonderful compliment.
yes. So it's like, I know I'm doing a good job if I can make you cry.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what
Without
real
even,
magic.
like, I was crying without even the words on there. Sure. But I even I use this when I teach students, the way you place a word balloon, what it looks like, how much space is in between a certain part of a dialogue and the other part, can be the acting on the page that you don't hear, that we don't have the benefit of in comics, of swelling orchestra or music that makes you feel a certain way, or loudness of volume, or the way an actor is making something sound. We have to rely on everything with just and we have a limited amount of space on the page for both the art and the dialogue. So the dialogue has to be the most important. It's like, this is not the place for exposition that should be shown, or if it is, it's a caption here or there, but you can't, like, I can keep talking and then while my words are not covering up my face at this point, but if I was in word balloons, you wouldn't even see anything in this room right now.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it'd still be interesting to read, but yeah, as you say, you've got these, relatively limited tools, or a wheelhouse of tools that you have to be creative within. Now we were talking about tears, so I only hope these are happy tears, if there are any. How has your time been in Herceg-Novi?
Oh my gosh!
And this festival.
Oh, the festival's wonderful. I really I love. I don't even know. Would I call this a European style festival? Because not every European festival is like this. Because there's some that are more American style. I like this cultural event. The whole town participates. It's viewed. There's music. There's public. The tent with all of the reading materials, and there's an excitement at these types of conventions at festivals that I don't find at American conventions. There's a different type of excitement there, and a different type of fun, but it's, I've never been to Montenegro before. I've been to Croatia, so I've been in the region, but it's like the landscape is different. I live in Chicago, so it's not like I don't have a large body of water right next to me. But it is flat. Yeah. Chicago is a flat city. Beautiful city, wonderful architecture, but completely different than this.
Yeah, quite a long way from Chicago. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love, the common language that everyone speaks though here is comics.
Yes.
And I might not be able to speak to you with my translation app very well, but I know that stuff that I have said is consumed by people who can't speak my language, because we all speak the language of storytelling. Sure,
and loved as well, by all these people, and it's wonderful to see everyone kind of come together and share that language. And I don't know if I can speak for everybody here, but we are delighted that you're here, and
I'm glad to be here.
You're very, very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and chat with you today, and I hope you continue to enjoy the festival.
I think I will.
Yeah. Lovely to meet you, Jill.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks. All right. That's brilliant. I feel like it's